What if the food that protects your mood did nothing at all until you crossed a line? That is not how we are taught to think about eating well. We treat it like a dial. Slightly better food, slightly better health. Someone finally added up every study on one ordinary food and the dial turned out to be a switch. In the next few minutes, you will find out where that switch sits and why almost nobody eats enough to flip it. Why the strongest signal shows up in the mildest cases and vanishes in the serious ones. Why the one region famous for eating this food is the only place the effect refuses to appear. And why the study's best at proving cause came back the quietest of all. Picture the last time you felt flat for a few weeks. Not ill, not broken, just gray. You went to work. You answered messages. Nothing was wrong, and nothing was good either. Almost nobody in that state ever sees a doctor, and that is exactly where this story ends up. Depression is one of the biggest health problems on the planet. More than 300 million people are living with it right now. That is about 1 in every 25 people alive. And the rate of new cases keeps climbing. It is on track to nearly double by 2040. But that number leaves out a much larger group. Doctors have a name for it: subthreshold depression. You have real depressive symptoms without enough of them to earn a diagnosis. No label, no treatment. Just months of flatness that quietly wrecks your sleep and your patience and your work. And it is not harmless. People in that gray zone are far more likely to slide into full depression later. It is the widest part of the problem, and the part nobody counts. Hold on to it. It explains something strange at the end. So what could possibly reach that far into your head from a plate? For decades, researchers kept noticing the same thing in Southern Europe. People eating a traditional Mediterranean diet had less depression than almost everyone else. Fruit, vegetables, whole grains, olive oil, and one ingredient that kept turning up while nobody paid much attention: nuts. Here is a small thing that matters later. A peanut is not a nut. It grows underground, and it is a legume like a pea. An almond is a seed inside a fruit. Even the word we are using does not agree with itself. So why would a handful of them do anything to your mood? Crush an almond between your fingers. What comes out is oil. That is most of what a nut is: fat and minerals packed into a seed that has to power an entire tree from nothing. The densest survival kit in the plant world. Magnesium in amounts almost nothing else in your kitchen can match. Vitamin E, omega-3 fats, plant compounds called flavonoids and lignans that damp down inflammation. Every one of them has been tied to the machinery your brain uses to repair itself. But the piece that makes this story interesting is one amino acid: tryptophan. Your body cannot build it. You can only eat it. And once it reaches your brain, it gets rebuilt into serotonin, the chemical that almost every antidepressant on the market is trying to nudge. And this is where the popular version goes wrong. You have heard that turkey makes you sleepy because it is loaded with tryptophan. It is not. Turkey carries no more of it than chicken or cheese. The sleepiness comes from eating an enormous meal. The real catch is that tryptophan has to queue. It shares one narrow doorway into your brain with several other amino acids. Eat a steak and you flood the queue with competitors. The doorway is the bottleneck, not the plate. There is a second route, and it runs through your gut. The fiber in nuts feeds bacteria that help decide how much of that amino acid ever gets to travel. Your gut sets the size of the queue. Your brain gets whatever survives it. Now the part most videos skip. Nobody has watched this happen inside a living human head. The chemistry is real, and every step of it is real. Proof that eating nuts raises serotonin in your brain does not exist yet. So how do you test an idea like that on real people? You cannot lock thousands of people in a room for 10 years and control what they eat. So nutrition science does something much less glamorous. It asks huge questionnaires. How often do you eat this? How often do you eat that? Then it waits. And there are two ways of doing that, and they are not equal. One is a snapshot. You ask thousands of people about their diet and their mood on the same day. The other is a film. You record the diet first and then follow those same people forward for years. The film is the stronger tool, and the reason is obvious once you hear it. In a snapshot, you cannot tell which came first. In a film, the food came first because it was written down before anything happened. Remember the snapshot and the film. Because when every study on this question was finally gathered in one place, the snapshots and the films did not agree. And what do you do when the better tool gives you the weaker answer? Park that, because the disagreement only makes sense once you have the other half of the puzzle. And that half has nothing to do with study design. It is about how much. Almost 300 years ago, a naval doctor took sailors dying of scurvy and gave different pairs different treatments. The ones given citrus recovered. Nobody else did. What took another 2 centuries to understand is that vitamin C does not work like a dial either. Below roughly 10 milligrams a day, your body cannot hold its own connective tissue together, and your teeth fall out. Above it, you are fine. 10 times more does nothing extra. That shape has a name, a threshold effect. Nothing happens, then everything happens at once. Nutrition is full of these cliffs, and we keep drawing them as slopes. Dietary fiber only began cutting depressive symptoms in one large study once daily intake passed a specific line. Below it, nothing. Above it, a real effect. Same food, same pube, different amount. If you like ordinary questions in science turning out to have far stranger answers than anyone expected, then hit subscribe. We find a new one every week. Now back to that line. So does a handful of nuts have a line like that? Think about what a serving actually looks like. A small handful. About what fits in your closed palm. Now ask yourself how many days a week you eat one. For most people, the honest answer is closer to never than to often. And here's where you should be getting suspicious. People who eat nuts 3 times a week are usually doing plenty of other things right. They sleep. They walk. They can afford food that is not the cheapest food. The people behind this work knew that. Every study in the pile corrected for age and sex and body weight and drinking. Almost all of them corrected for exercise too. That does not make the problem vanish. It shrinks it to something you can reason about. There is a nastier version of the same objection. What if being low changes what you eat? That would fake the whole thing. It is a fair worry with one twist. When people are low, they do not reach for nuts. They reach for sugar. And zoom out for a second. If something this small moves the gray end of depression even slightly, then it moves it for hundreds of millions of people at once. That is the strange arithmetic of prevention. Tiny effects across enormous populations beat huge effects across almost nobody. So what happens when you finally put every one of those studies on the same page? That is what the study behind this video did. 7 studies. Everyone that had ever asked the question. 70,000 people between them across Europe and the Americas and Asia, pooled into one number for the first time. And the headline is real. The people eating the most nuts carried roughly a quarter less risk of depressive symptoms than the people eating the least. Not a wobble. A quarter. But the number underneath it is the one that matters. Split those people by how often they actually ate nuts, and the effect splits like stone along a seam. Once or twice a week, nothing. Their risk sits almost exactly on top of the people eating none at all. 3 times a week or more, and the quarter comes back whole. That is the switch from the first line of this video. 2 servings a week is not most of the benefit. It is none of it. Now the part that should stop you. Split the studies by where they were done and you get a ranking. The Americas come first by a distance. Asia second at about a quarter lower risk. And in last place, barely moving, is Europe. Europe, home of the Mediterranean diet. The one place on earth where eating nuts is a cultural default, is the one place the effect refuses to appear. And that is where the snapshot and the film come back. The split was never really about geography. The 4 snapshot studies found a clear effect. The 3 that followed people forward through time never quite reached it. The better 2 came back quieter. Except the 2 kinds of study were not measuring the same thing. The films counted people diagnosed with depression by a doctor. Moderate cases. Severe cases. The snapshots handed people a questionnaire and counted symptoms. One group was counting the illness. The other was counting the gray. And Europe leaned on doctors while the Americas and Asia leaned on questionnaires. That map was never a map of nuts. It was a map of measuring instruments. Which points at something far more interesting than a food fact. The effect may be weaker in serious depression, not because the studies were sloppy, but because that is not where it lives. A handful of nuts is not going to lift a clinical depression. It might do something at the shallow end. The gray weeks. The flatness with no name and no appointment. Exactly the group we started with, and exactly the group almost nobody measures. One more piece, and it is the closest thing here to a real experiment. A large trial split older adults into 3 diets. A control diet, a Mediterranean diet with extra olive oil, and the same diet with a daily handful of mixed nuts. The nut group finished with the lowest rate of depression of the 3. One trial settles nothing on its own. But it points the same way 70,000 people already did. Here is the honest limit of all of it. Every study in this pile watched people. Not one assigned anyone anything. So this is a strong and consistent association, and not proof that the nuts are doing the work. It could still be that the kind of life which includes nuts 3 times a week is the thing protecting you. The pattern is real. The arrow between cause and effect is not nailed down. And remember the peanut. One study counted 20 kinds of nut, and another counted 7. Peanuts carry more tryptophan than hazelnuts do. Nobody knows yet whether the handful in your palm is the right handful. So what do you actually take from this? Not a superfood, something less satisfying and more useful. Almost every real gain in health hides at the boring end. Not where the illness is loudest, but where nothing has a name yet. And it shows up only past a line, and only for people who kept going long after it stopped feeling like anything was happening. A handful of nuts 3 times a week is not a treatment. It is a bet you place years before you find out whether you needed it.